My name is Elara Vance. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a freelance graphic designer. The fluorescent kitchen light hummed, casting a sickly yellow glow on the chipped formica countertop. My dad, Richard Vance, stood opposite me, his face a mask of furious disbelief, his tie still perfectly knotted despite the late hour. "You want to what with your savings, Elara?" he demanded, his voice low and vibrating with a menace I knew well. "You think you just get to pull out that kind of money without discussing it with me? After everything I've done for you?" I clutched the printout from my online banking, my knuckles white. "Dad, it's my money. I earned it. I need it for the down payment on the studio space." I'd found a perfect little spot, a dream come true for my design business. He'd been managing my investments since I was 18, a system he insisted was for my benefit, but which had always felt like a leash. Tonight, I was cutting it. His eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward, his shadow engulfing me. "Ungrateful little brat. You think you're so smart, so independent? You'd be nothing without me." He reached out, not to touch me, but to grab the counter, his grip so tight the cheap laminate groaned. "You want to walk away from everything I built for you? Fine. But you're not getting a dime." Before I could even process his words, before I could articulate the sharp retort forming on my tongue, his hand shot out. It wasn't a slap, not a punch. It was a shove, brutal and unexpected. My feet slipped on the linoleum, and I flew backward, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. The impact stole my breath, rattling my teeth, and a searing pain shot through my shoulder. I crumpled to the floor, my vision blurring, the banking printout fluttering uselessly from my grasp. He stood over me, chest heaving, his face still contorted with rage, not a flicker of remorse. In that moment, lying on the cold kitchen floor, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: he had just lost everything. To understand why this moment felt like both an ending and a beginning, you need to know about my father, Richard Vance. He was a man obsessed with control, particularly financial control. From the outside, he was a pillar of our small suburban community in upstate New York, a self-made man who owned a successful landscaping and property management company. He was proud of his meticulously manicured lawn, his perfectly organized garage, and his ability to provide for his family. But his provision came with invisible strings, always. My mother, Sarah, was a gentle, quiet woman who had long ago learned to navigate the currents of his temper by staying silent. She'd tried to shield me from his harsher edges, but her efforts were mostly ineffectual. His study, a room dominated by a massive, dark cherrywood desk, was his sanctuary and his command center. From behind that desk, he managed our lives, especially our money. He'd always insisted on handling my finances, even from my first babysitting job. "It's for your future, Elara," he'd say, tapping a pen rhythmically on the desk. "You don't want to be one of those scatterbrained artists who can't manage a budget." When I went to college for graphic design, he was initially resistant, preferring I choose something more practical. But when I secured a significant scholarship, he saw an opportunity. "Let me manage that scholarship money for you," he'd offered, a benevolent smile on his face. "We'll invest it, grow it. You won't even have to touch your student loans for living expenses." It sounded logical, and I was young, eager to please, and overwhelmed by the complexities of college life. I signed the papers he put in front of me, trusting him completely. What I didn't understand yet was that managing meant total control, and investing meant a black hole of vague pronouncements and no actual statements. After graduation, I landed a good entry-level job at a marketing firm in Rochester. I started saving diligently, dreaming of my own design studio. When I mentioned wanting to buy a small condo, my father swooped in again. "Don't be foolish, Elara. The market is tricky. Let me help you. I know a guy. He arranged everything, or so he claimed. He put down the substantial down payment, supposedly from my investments, and even handled the mortgage paperwork. My name was on the deed, but he insisted on being the primary contact for all financial matters, citing my busy schedule. He promised he'd send me the statements, but they never arrived. Every time I asked, he'd brush it off with a wave of his hand, saying, "Everything's handled, don't worry your pretty little head about it." The apartment was mine, yes, but it felt like I was living in a gilded cage he owned. I thought that was the worst of it. It wasn't. The real pressure came when I decided to leave my corporate job and pursue freelance design full-time. My father was furious. He called it irresponsible and a waste of my potential. He tried to dissuade me, then to outright forbid it. But I was 28, and I was good at what I did. My client list was growing, and I was finally making enough to support myself comfortably. That's when the numbers stopped looking accidental. I started noticing discrepancies. My bank account, the one I controlled for my freelance income, was healthy, but when I looked at the overall picture, factoring in the investments he supposedly managed, something was off. I knew I had saved more than what was showing up. The final straw came when I found the perfect small commercial space to convert into my dream design studio. It was a fixer-upper, but affordable, and the location was fantastic. I needed a substantial sum for the down payment and initial renovations, money I believed was sitting in the investment accounts my father managed. I called him, excited, telling him about the studio. His response was immediate and chilling. "That's a ridiculous idea, Elara. You're throwing away good money. And besides, that money isn't available right now. It's tied up." "Tied up?" I pressed him. I needed specific details, account numbers, statements. He became evasive, then angry, accusing me of questioning his judgment, of being ungrateful for all his hard work on my behalf. He said he'd discuss it when I came home for dinner that Saturday. That dinner was a silent affair, my mother picking at her food, avoiding eye contact. After she cleared the dishes, my father led me into the kitchen, away from her presence. He launched into a lecture about financial responsibility, about how I was too naive to manage large sums, how he was protecting me from myself. He spoke of the condo, reminding me how much he'd sacrificed to get me into it. But when I pushed, demanding to see the actual investment statements, to know where my scholarship money and the bulk of my early savings had gone, he snapped. He called me ungrateful, a spoiled child who thinks money grows on trees. He said he didn't owe me anything, that everything he'd done was out of the goodness of his heart, and I was betraying him. That's when I threw the printout of my current bank balance onto the counter, showing him exactly what I had earned, and told him I wanted my money, all of it, for my studio. His face twisted. He grabbed the counter, then shoved me into the wall. Lying there on the cold kitchen floor, the pain in my shoulder was a sharp, physical manifestation of years of emotional manipulation. The shock was immediate, but it quickly gave way to a clarity I'd never felt before. He wasn't protecting me, he was controlling me. He wasn't investing for me, he was leveraging my assets, perhaps even siphoning off my funds for his own purposes. The gilded cage had just revealed its bars. My mother, drawn by the crash, appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her hands covering her mouth. For the first time, she didn't just look away. She looked at him. I pushed myself up, slowly, painfully, my shoulder screaming in protest. I didn't say another word to him. I just grabbed my keys, my purse, and walked out the door, leaving him standing there, his face still red with fury. I drove straight to my friend Chloe's apartment, shaking. Chloe, a smart and steady lawyer, listened patiently as I recounted everything, from the scholarship money to the condo, to the missing investment statements, and finally, the shove. She didn't offer platitudes. Instead, she said, "Elara, this isn't just about money. This is abuse. We need to get you safe, and then we need to get your finances untangled." The next morning, Chloe helped me file a police report for the assault. It was terrifying, and my father's name carried a certain weight in town, but the officer took my statement seriously, noting the visible bruising on my shoulder and the dent in the kitchen wall I'd described. Then, with Chloe's guidance, I started the painstaking process of gathering every scrap of financial information I had, old bank statements, emails where he mentioned investments, the deed to the condo which, thankfully, had my name on it, though his was also present. We found that while he had made the down payment, he had also taken out a second mortgage on the property, without my knowledge, using it as collateral for one of his own business ventures. He wasn't covering the primary mortgage as he'd claimed, He was using my name and the property to secure his own loans. The investments were even murkier, a shell game of transfers between accounts I didn't recognize, with no clear returns or even original principal amounts. Chloe drafted a formal letter, sent from her law firm, demanding a complete and transparent accounting of all funds he had managed on my behalf, along with immediate repayment of any misappropriated funds and full transfer of the condo's ownership to my sole name. It also included a clear statement about the assault and a warning that further legal action would be taken if he did not comply. The letter landed on his heavy wooden desk a few days later. His initial reaction was predictable: outrage, denial, threats. He called my mother, demanding she tell me to back down. He called me, screaming about how I was ruining his reputation, how I was an ungrateful daughter. But this time, I didn't back down. I had Chloe, and I had the police report. My mother, after years of silence, finally found her voice. She called me, not to scold, but to tell me she was sorry. Sorry for not seeing it sooner, for not protecting me. She even offered to testify to his temper, something I never thought I'd hear. The legal process was slow, but relentless. The police investigation into the assault moved forward, though he ultimately received a warning and mandatory anger management classes, rather than jail time, due to it being a first reported physical incident. The financial battle was harder. Chloe systematically dismantled his claims, presenting evidence of the missing funds, the unauthorized second mortgage, and the lack of transparency. His self-made image began to crack under the scrutiny. Business associates he'd leveraged for loans or partnerships began to pull away when they heard rumors of his questionable ethics and the family drama. He was forced to sell off some assets, including a portion of his landscaping business, to cover the debts he'd incurred and to repay the money he owed me. The condo was a messy legal fight, but eventually, I secured sole ownership and refinanced it, stripping his name from every document. He lost everything, not in a single dramatic crash, but in a slow, agonizing unraveling of the carefully constructed world he had built. He lost his control over me, his golden child narrative, his reputation among many of his peers, and eventually, the respect of his wife. My mother moved out of the house a few months later, taking a small apartment closer to me. She said she couldn't live with the silence of that house anymore. I never got the full amount of my original scholarship money back, but I recovered enough to secure the studio space I'd dreamed of. It's a small place, with exposed brick and a view of the city, and it is entirely mine. I bought a simple, sturdy pine desk for my new office. It's nothing like the dark, imposing cherrywood behemoth my father had, but it's mine. It holds my computer, my sketches, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I built this, truly, on my own. The scar on my shoulder is a faint line now, a reminder of the day I found my own strength, and the day he lost his.